How can a system move forward so systematically with this clear moral purpose? But I think those of us involved in education, change and reform around the world realise that now we're trying to educate in faster moving times. We're trying to do all the things that we've done up until now that have worked well. But at the same time, we're asking more from our systems than ever before. We're asking, how do we build these broader set of competencies for every young person in their skills that ensure they'll be successful in future study and future work? How do we build more resilient communities that ensure that young people don't just have the cognitive skills, but they've also got the intrapersonal skills, both personally and in the relationships that they hold? And lastly, how could we really move to the next frontier in equity? Not just talking about clear moral purpose, but ensuring that every young person actually really has the capabilities for success going forward. And so these are the big challenges that you'll find educators, policymakers, system leaders talking about in every corner of the globe right now. And so the reason I really wish I was with you in person is I'd love to be with you and be talking about, where do you think we need to go next? The focus of today, what I love about it is it's focusing on the how. I mean, your renewed vision is truly inspiring. It's terrific. Some of your key advisors, people like Andy Hargraves and Carol and Michael, these are people that I've looked up to for years. You've definitely got the right advice in the direction to go into. But the problem isn't actually necessarily getting the strategy right. It's all about the implementation, isn't it? It's all about how people on the front line, leading at the district office, leading at the school level, leading in the classroom, can make this real, practical and meaningful in their day-to-day work. And so what I'd love to share this morning in this sort of opening element is some conversations that I've been having with people about agile leadership, about how we in systems that are already sort of established and doing things superbly in some areas can build the agility in our leadership and our organizations to go in new directions, to do new and different things, whilst also maintaining the best of the old. So I'd love to share 3 key frames and then 3 strategies in the short amount of time I've got to share with you this morning. So 3 frameworks for leaders. And the first one in agile leadership is about being better all the time. I don't think any educational advisor or analyst would ever turn up to Ontario and say, this is a system that needs to be fixed. But you see, the best systems always look to get better. The best sports teams, the best hockey teams. The best teams are always asking themselves, yes, we've come this far, but where's next? What are the next horizons we need to push ourselves in? And so I suggest as leaders today have discussions at tables, over coffee together. Ask each other, how do we keep getting better all the time? How do we take the strengths of what we've done up until now, but ask the new questions of what we need to do next? The second frame I want to suggest is about radical incrementalism. And this is a term that I think I'm trying to use more and more to really push back on the people that tell us that the future of learning is about disruptive innovation. It's about leaving behind the old models of education and moving into some bold new way of doing things that looks very different to what we've done before. But as you have this renewed vision of education, renewed vision for learning across this wonderful province, let me suggest to you that you first honour the past. That you acknowledge that the work that's been done, particularly since the last wave of reforms, has been truly remarkable. And in fact, there's a huge amount there that isn't going to be lost. It isn't going to be thrown out. In fact, we want to take it and build on it in this next phase. I want you to think about a personal question for me. What was the first car you ever owned? Was it in the 60s? Was it in the 70s? Was it the 80s? And what were the features you were most proud about? The things that you paid extra money for or that you told your friends you had on it. Now think about the car that you've recently bought, maybe the last few years or so, and the features that you expect to have just absolutely fit on that car. You wouldn't ever contemplate paying extra money for it. See, think about the journey cars have gone on in the last 30, 40 years. As car designers have always kept the things that are working well, but every year, every model found new and different ways to make it more personal, make it more human, make it a better experience for drivers. And I actually think it's the right metaphor for those of us in education. As we head off in this renewed vision, it's very important for us to consider how we can honour the past, how we can be very clear about the things that aren't going to change, but at the same time have a radical new vision for where learning must go, a compelling learning future. And for me, that's a vision of radical incrementalism, radical in the new learning pedagogies that we're going to have, but incremental, and we're going to take our systems on a journey to get there. And the last frame that I wanted to share in this agile leadership to kick off the conversations this morning is to heed the human factors. You see, systems only transform at the speed of trust. And really, education systems don't change. It's not even that people change. It's their daily practices that change. And so as we think about a renewed vision and the how-to, let me encourage us to get deeply personal, be driven by empathy as we consider what this will mean for the day-to-day teacher, as she turns up, as he turns up, to do the work. For the principal, for the deputy principal, for the people in the divisional office, what will this mean for them and their work? Because educators are people too. I've got a 10-month-old child at home and one on the way later this year. I can tell you that that's taking a lot of my bandwidth, both emotionally and cognitively. And you come to me and you say, oh, can you add this new practice? We're heading off on a new renewed vision. And sometimes actually what may look like resistance is actually just overload. There's things going on in personal life. There's things going on in school life. And so I think as we as leaders think about how to really drive forward the execution of this renewed vision, we need to think about what's going on for people. How do we make this simple? How do we make this clear? How do we make this motivating? Because changing routinized practices is pretty hard. I wonder who in the room is able to touch type. I know, unfortunately, I can't. I wish I could. And instead, I have this mode of typing that's sort of fast on one side, and there's only about 2 fingers that work on this side. And every now and again, I tell myself, you've got to learn how to type properly. And so I stop and I try to break the old routine of the way I type. I've almost got to push this finger down. And then I get busy. I've got a report due. I've got something due to the university. And so straight away I say to myself, I'll go back to the old way, but I promise I'll go back and learn that new, more effective way later on. You see, changing practice is as much about unlearning as is learning. And we need to consider what's it really going to take on the ground to support our teachers change their routinized practice of work. Many of them changed it in 2004, 2005, 2006, so they implemented the last strategy. And now it's comfortable, now it's routinized, now it's something that they can do, without really thinking about it all the time. And we're going to come along now and say, can you move again? Can you be more explicit and purposeful and systematic about what you're doing? And that's going to drain their energy. And so we need to heed the human factors. So 3 frames for agile leadership to kick off this morning. Number 1, we need to get better all the time. Number 2, radical incrementalism, honor the past while moving to the future. And number 3, heed the human factors. Systems change at the speed of trust. They change at the capacity for normal people to change their routinized ways of working. And unless we make it as simple and as clear for them to do that, then we're going to have a great vision and very little changed implementation.